hear me out on this. If you love Instagram, I totally get why you do. This video is not a critique of you in any way, shape or form if you love it. This is just based on my experience and my opinion, which frankly could be totally rubbish, and it could be just that I don't know how to use Instagram. So I was quite late to the Instagram party really. I only signed up to it in August 2017, and prior to this I had 10 years travel and landscape photography experience, so I had quite an extensive portfolio in which to upload. My plan of attack was to start with my weaker content, which I hope is earlier in my photography career, and progressively deliver stronger and stronger content working up to the present day. At the moment, I'm about 3/4 of the way through that process. I took it quite seriously initially, spending so much time uploading content, liking other images, commenting on other people's uploads, and generally just following accounts. And I actually had some initial success. By Christmas 2017, I actually managed to have 3,000 followers on Instagram, which I was pretty astonished by. Anyone who followed me, I followed back out of some sort of weird common courtesy, and initially everything felt hunky-dory. But I became quite fatigued by this because I came to the realization that it all felt a little bit forced and, well, a bit artificial. When I look back, I really did spend a silly amount of time invested in it. I'd spend countless hours watching these silly YouTube videos that were going to transform my account and give me 10,000 followers in a day. You know the type. I became obsessed with growing my account, unhealthily fixated on numbers, and I don't actually know why. And when I look back, the key feeling is that it didn't really actually bring me any satisfaction whatsoever. Around the start of 2018, I rather naively thought that the images now were sufficiently strong that they could kind of support the account themselves really, without me investing stupid amounts of time in artificially generating that interest around my images. I expected things to slow down, but ultimately I was fine with that. Well, it certainly did slow down. Since the start of 2018, my Instagram account growth has been minus 350, and my engagement rate is now about 30% of what it once was. This dramatic drop-off would seem to suggest that success on Instagram may have more to do with how you use it rather than the actual quality of the images. Or it might actually suggest that my images that are supposedly getting progressively stronger are progressively getting worse. So over the last few weeks, I've been thinking really in depth about the platform and my relationship with it. And I've come to a few conclusions. And I think these conclusions can actually be broadly applied to all social media channels. I just think Instagram happens to be the very worst offender at the moment. Conclusion 1. Instagram is potentially bringing out the worst in some photographers, and I think I'm an absolute perfect example of this. I think it's actually leading to a lot of photographers fixating on themselves, becoming focused on taking rather than giving, and ultimately becoming unhealthily obsessed by the numbers. It actually feels like a lot of people only follow my Instagram page because they want to get a boost with their own page. I mean, I probably get about 10 followers every single day without fail, which sounds pretty impressive, but it's less impressive when you realise that those same 10 people probably unfollow me within a few days because I haven't followed them back. The overriding feeling is that Instagram just feels like one giant popularity contest. Conclusion 2. Instagram is actually warping photography itself. It's absolutely full of over-processed and composite images, and much like fake news, this is actually distorting people's perceptions of what photography is. Many of these images don't disclose their fakery, but even if they do, people literally spend seconds swiping through the images. They can't spot the fakery, or they just don't care. But the damage is done. The perceptions of photography are warped. Here's a great example for you. So a few months ago, I saw an image of an iconic location on the Isle of Man that had this incredible bolt of lightning behind it. But I instantly knew it was a composite. It was very clearly a composite, but it didn't disclose that it was. And the problem here is to genuinely get that image may take years and years of work. Lightning is incredibly rare here, but it doesn't matter. By putting that image out there on a platform like Instagram, the damage is done. The value of the real photographer that tries to go out there and genuinely get that image is devalued. Instagram is absolutely awash with this sort of rubbish. It isn't necessarily the monster, but it certainly feeds the monster. There's a rush to be bolder, cooler, more epic, more colourful, and convey all of this in the split seconds that you have on an Instagram feed. Anything that takes a little bit more processing and thought is totally left behind. With the algorithm, it's effectively survival of the fittest, but that doesn't actually necessarily reward the best images due to the way that Instagram is actually used. Instagram has effectively become a giant echo chamber, which is narrowing the parameters of what constitutes a great image. My entire Instagram feed is beginning to look and feel exactly the same. The Explore page on Instagram is absolutely dominated by the same type of share accounts. It almost feels like some of the most wonderful photographers that I follow on Instagram really don't get the oxygen that they deserve from the platform. The real danger here is that photographers are probably starting to take images with Instagram engagement in mind, and what this results in ultimately is an Instagram awash with pictures that feel totally homogenous. And the real danger here is that ultimately when people in their feeds are seeing the same type of photos, incredible photos trying to out epic each other, ultimately they'll start to get bored by even the most incredible shot. Which brings me on to conclusion 3. I think I'm rubbish at using Instagram, but I've been thinking, is it an accident that I got the most from Instagram when I was most heavily invested in it? I don't think it is. I think that's actually by design, and I think to actually use Instagram effectively, you've got to throw yourself 100% into it. So I'm obviously a complete dunce at using Instagram, but I do feel that if you've got any aspirations of making it on Instagram in 2018 or going forwards, ultimately I don't know whether organic growth and just the pure strength of your images are gonna be enough. It feels very oversaturated, and that it actually requires heavy investment to get anywhere in most cases. Which leads me on to my deep and poignant final conclusion, and that is, why do I care about any of this? Perhaps I am actually the problem. Perhaps I need to free myself from fixating on numbers, not just on Instagram, but on all social media. Chasing bigger and bigger numbers for no reason is like a dog chasing its tail. Enough will never be enough, and therefore it probably is never going to bring any kind of real satisfaction. Instagram has probably brought out the worst in myself and my photography. I've fallen into the numbers trap, and this has led me to unreasonably question myself and my photography, and ultimately focus on things which just aren't important. And I'm not going to do it any longer. I'm scaling down, so I'm going to reduce the amount of accounts that I follow so that I get to a point where I'm truly following accounts that I value. And if this loses me followers, I don't really care. I'm still going to post content to Instagram, but I think I'm going to change the way that I use it and try and go back to the roots of what actually makes Instagram amazing. Beautiful photography from talented photographers in the palm of my hand. Bigger isn't necessarily better. Smaller can actually be better. I want to treat people on Instagram like people, not like numbers.